Is mindful eating actually hurting your relationship with food? The truth may surprise you. Welcome to the series. I'm Alicia and I'm so glad you're here. Today, before we get started, I want to remind you to subscribe and hit the bell. I also want to remind you that in this course, the additional download materials are in emails every single day. So even though the videos are on YouTube, you've got to sign up at mindovermunch.com/foodfreedom to get the daily goods. Also, it is completely free. So I've been talking all month about how mindfulness really healed my relationship with food. And a lot of times when I say that, people think I mean mindful eating.
But I don't.
So as you know by now, mindfulness is a non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. And it helps us shift our relationships to things around us. It doesn't actually change the external circumstances. It just changes how I approach it and interpret it. This is true for people, for food, for my relationship
With Krispy Kreme.
The truth is, when I approached mindful eating at first, I had a real aversion to it. I didn't want to eat slow, and I thought that mindful eating had to be slow. And also focusing so much on the food was really triggering for me. And I found that it's not for everyone, and I'm going to talk about maybe who it's not for and who it is for today. I really first started to explore this in grad school. Like I said, I went to grad school to study mindfulness because I was like, how the heck did I heal my relationship with food through mindfulness and not mindful eating? It didn't make sense to me. And when I was doing all my research, I came across a program called MBE, the Mindfulness-Based Eating Awareness Training. It's based off of a mindfulness program, MBSR. It's the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program. And that's where most of the research around mindfulness really started in the 70s. So this mindfulness-based eating awareness training program was based around that. I came across it in some of the published literature that showed that people were healing their relationships with food, especially people who struggled with binge eating, through mindfulness. So I decided to go through this certification program to learn what it's all about. I liked a lot of things about the program. I'm going to share some of the tools tomorrow in a binge eating specific video, and I also talk about some of those tools more deeply in the Mind Over Meal Prep course. But I don't like everything about the program. I've actually been working on my own project that I'm going to talk about soon. I've adapted it a little bit, and you'll hear more on that. So that program focuses on mindful eating and bringing mindfulness to meals, bringing that non-judgmental awareness of the present moment to the eating experience. Now, most of us are not typically mindful when we eat. We're distracted.
Don't swipe up. Don't swipe up. Don't swipe up. Don't swipe up.
So the practice can really give you a lot of information about yourself and your habits. It helps us tune into our bodies to receive those messages that we've talked about, that dieting and conditioning can get us disconnected from through dysregulation. If you don't remember what I'm talking about, watch the videos earlier in the series, because those foundational concepts are all essential to understand before we get to this week's content. So how do we do mindful eating? There's really no right or wrong way, and this really surprised me. The most important thing is to sit down without any distractions or devices. You want to be fully with the food, to not have anything stimulate your mind wandering away. It does not have to be slow, and this was really a surprise to me. It can be helpful to be slow, to help you tune in and pay attention. You know, when we slow down, sometimes we can take everything in a little bit more, but it doesn't have to be. There are other ways to connect mindfully with the food without it being slow. And the biggest way is through the senses. I love the senses. And the thing about mindfulness, the senses become such an important part because we can only be with the senses here and now. We can't be, for instance, I can only smell or see or hear something right now in this present moment. If I'm thinking about something I smelled yesterday or heard yesterday, or thinking about a sound I've heard before, that's actually not something I'm hearing now or smelling now. It's a thought, right? The senses are only here and now. This is amazing to me. When you approach food mindfully with the senses, take it in fully. How does the food look? What are the colors and the shapes and the textures? Does it look appealing to you? Does it look unappealing? How does it smell? I've noticed the smell, when I smell my food before I eat it now, which I never really did before, it makes a huge difference in the experience of the taste. I mean, really, it makes a difference to just pay attention, but smelling it specifically actually affects the taste buds. Then when you finally taste the food, notice it fully. You know, what is it like in your mouth? What's it like to have the food touch the taste buds on your tongue? What are the textures like? What does it feel like to chew? Can you notice even the the impulse to swallow. Notice the sounds as you chew and as you swallow. And then when you go to take your next bite, do it all over again and notice what's the same, what's different, how does it change bite to bite? How do your taste buds change on the first compared to the second, third, fifth, 10th bite? Now, of course, again, being slow can help us get granular, but it's not necessary to eat, as slow as a turtle. I actually don't know if turtles eat slow, but as a turtle walks, you get it. It depends on you. Now, you don't have to try this approach to eating at every single meal. Just try it once a week or a couple times a week. There's no pressure here. The point is not to eat like this all the time. It's just to start to pay attention when we eat sometimes, because then slowly we'll do it more and more without having to think about it. In today's email, I included a guided eating meditation. Remember, you have to be signed up for the emails to get the additional course materials. Mindful eating might not be right for you, and I have to talk about that too in this video. I personally prefer mindfulness. I've come around to mindful eating now more that I've healed my relationship with food, but at first I was very averse to it. It didn't make sense to me because everyone was like, oh, mindfulness, and you work on healing relationships with food, then you must love mindful eating. And I was like, I was curious about why, started researching, and I actually wrote a paper entirely about this in school. What I found is it comes down to the type of disordered eater you lean towards. Now, there's a spectrum, and it's sort of like on one end, there's the more restrictive eating, and then on the other end, there's binging and overeating. Because it's a spectrum, you're not necessarily one or the other. Some people are, exclusively one or the other, but a lot of people are somewhere in the middle and kind of go back and forth between. I was both. So I'm not talking diagnosed eating disorder here, and this is just a disclaimer that you have a diagnosed eating disorder. I'm not referring to you necessarily, although some of this probably still applies. I think most people struggling to make peace with food have some disordered eating habits, and that falls on a spectrum. That's all I'm saying. Most of us who diet, we restrict when we diet, and then our bodies become dysregulated. We talked about this last week, I think, and we start to feel starved, and then we binge to compensate, because remember, a diet technically is starvation to the body because we're depriving it of food, and our bodies are like, oh my God, what's happening? I need to retain what's here.
No one's come to visit me in 15 years.
And then eventually when the food's there, we're like, must consume everything. Okay, so this is normal, but of course we do it and we think there's something wrong with me, which leads to a lot of judgment. And then what does that do?
It just makes us binge more.
Eventually, we feel so terrible about ourselves that we go through the cycle again. Oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person. I'm judging myself. Why am I the only one who can't get this together? I'm judging myself, and now I've gained all this weight. Now I have to start a diet all over again. It's a terrible, endless cycle. That's also a habit loop that our brains get used to. We get used to depriving until we can't stand it anymore and binging, and then we train ourselves to do it again and again and again. Now, you may see both of these restriction and binge eating tendencies in you too, and I encourage you to meet yourself where you're at now. So, how this relates to mindful eating. For those in a binge mindset, mindful eating can be really helpful because when we binge, we tend to turn off to what our bodies say. We don't stop when we're full. We don't know how. So tuning into the present can really help and be grounding. And I'm gonna talk more specifically about binge eating tomorrow. But for those with restrictive patterns, if you're there now, mindful eating could help, but for me, it was very triggering. So much focus on the food was really overwhelming to me, and it made it very hard for me to stay present. And what I found was in the MB Eat program, when I did the certification, they specifically said, this is not for people that struggle with anorexia because of that restrictive tendency, and it can be triggering for some people. So if this is you, it's okay. It's about tuning into your inner wisdom and knowing where you're at right now, and no one else can tell you that. For restrictive eaters, if you're struggling with restrictive eating, and again, I'm not talking specifically have a diagnosed eating disorder, but you tend to lean towards restriction or dieting, then mindfulness in general may help you more. It helped me a lot more during my restrictive times. Mindful eating was more helpful when I was binge eating and turning off, but typically when I was restricting, it's not that I was so aware of my body signals, but I was very aware of everything around food. Mindfulness shifts your relationships to things around you without focusing on the external things. So I can shift my relationship to food without focusing on the food. And that's what I needed, was to stop focusing on the food so much because it was stressing me out. Now, meditation, you can meditate to practice mindfulness. Remember, it's just a tool. So meditation isn't just about anxiety, relieving anxiety. It's about practicing being present. Now, I recommend every single day, just whatever you can do, even 5 minutes. It will build up over time, but even 5 minutes a day can make a big difference. And I've also put some guided audio meditations in the course materials that you've been getting via email. You can still sign up and get them all. Don't worry, it's free. But you can also bring mindfulness to the rest of your life without meditating. So, how can you tune into the senses? One of my favorite ways is washing dishes. When I'm washing dishes, I hear the sound of the water running. I hear the dishes clanking. I get a special soap that I love the smell of, and I just notice the smell of it. I feel, the soapy bubbles on my hands, and it's a great opportunity to tune into the senses while doing something that I don't particularly love, but when I'm present with it, I just dread it so much less. Another way is through walking meditation, just going for a walk, but really being present with the senses around you, present with your feet hitting the floor, present with the sounds, mindful showers, feeling the water on your skin, feeling the soap, hearing, just really tuning in. There's always an opportunity to tune into mindfulness. The hard part is remembering to do it. So again, there are some guided audio meditations, regular meditations, but also eating meditations and walking meditations in the email course. Now, I just encourage you, this is a lot to take in. Be patient with yourselves. All I want for you is to find confidence to trust yourself. The whole reason I wanted to make this series, and what I've always wanted for the channel really, but I wasn't sure how to do it, is to help you feel that you can take responsibility for your health without needing anyone else to decide for you. Not a doctor, not a nutritionist, not me. And these people can help and they can provide outer wisdom, but they can't build up your inner wisdom, which is essential to put outer wisdom into practice. Remember, the frosting on the cake. Okay, so tomorrow we'll get deeper into binge eating and tools for that and connecting with your inner wisdom there. If you found this video helpful about mindful eating, please share it with someone on your social media and let me know in the comments, what do you think about mindful eating? Has it resonated with you? Has it made it harder? Share your experience so we can communicate and really get to know each other in this community. Thank you so much. And remember, especially when you're practicing mindful eating, it's all a matter of mind over munch.